Good thing.
So thank you everyone that's joining us so far. I think a few people will probably dip in and out during this session, and we're also recording it. So if at any point you can't stay any longer, that's fine. I'll be making sure to put this on YouTube afterwards. And there's a few wine club members who will definitely benefit from that as well. So my name's Ellen. I work at the sourcing table. Quite a few of you have probably spoken to me via email. And I'm very excited to have Ermanno from Occhipinti Winery here today. Arianna is unfortunately unable to join us because this is one of the busiest times of year for them at the moment. It's crunch time. Ermanno will be able to tell you all about that in a sec, because some of you I think were lurking earlier, and basically Ermanno's just finished work for the day, so he's in the winery, he's ready to go, but like just a few minutes ago he was very much in action to get the 2021 vintage on the go. We're going to talk today about the history of Occhipinti, talk about Sicilian wine, and we're also going to, if you have it, if you don't have it, that's fine. But we're going to talk a little bit about the SP68, which is in the wine club case that the very wonderful Commander G have selected this quarter that I know lots of you are enjoying. So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions, because this is a webinar format, it's basically if you pop them in the chat box, I will make sure that they get answered. There's a Q&A section as well. I'm keeping an eye on everything. So any burning questions that you have for Ermanno and for Doug, please let me know. Doug is one of the sort of foremost experts on natural wine in the UK. He's written some incredible blogs for us on the sourcing table, which I highly encourage you to go and read. And Ermanno is the man on the ground at Occhipinti, and he knows what's going on in the cellars, so you are in very safe hands. Yeah, so I guess, Doug, what would be great if we could just kick things off with a little bit of chat about the winery history and take it from there. And I will interject from now and then. Also, Ermanno, I think it is quite echoey. I think that's some more to do with the winery than anything else. So I do apologize, guys, and we will try and make sure that we're not talking over you.
Great. Okay, so I'll just give a little back history, and Ermanno, you correct me, like if I go off track and say something that's not accurate. But Arianna Occhipinti, who gives the name of the winery, is the niece of Giusto Occhipinti, whose COS wines, that's COS, are undisputably, amongst the most famous in Sicily. And I believe in 1998, Giusto invited Arianna to help him out at a wine fair called Vinitaly for 4 days. And I believe that Arianna was around 16 at the time. And she didn't have a sort of a strong feeling about wine, particularly at that time. But the experience in itself was such a good one and an eye-opener that she decided to study viticulture and enology at university. Now, I guess that if you as she did work with her uncle Giusto, then what she would have studied at university would have been very counterintuitive. Because I think when you go to enology colleges, they teach you, this is the right way, this is the correct way, use chemicals, use yeasts, and they don't even support things like organic viticulture. They don't believe in hand harvesting. It's a Occam's razor. They want the simplest solution to making wine. And I think Arianna, well, we've seen over the years that, she is definitely one of the sort of, like, when you think of natural wine and you think of Italy, you think of Arianna in the sort of forefront of that movement as someone who's sort of working, scientifically in one hand, but really intuitively, and a great love for the land and a great feeling for the wines. So presumably she sort of rebelled against what she was taught in school. So that's, I think, the sort of brief background. But Ermanno, if you could tell us, why you think Arianna became interested in wine, and how she learned about enology, how that conflicted with her own experience, in life, and then sort of when did she start, working on her own, and how big was the vineyard, and what was the size of the winery she was working from? It was really, really small, wasn't it? It wasn't really a proper winery. Can you tell us a bit about the origins of the estate?
Okay, so hi to everybody. My name is Ermanno, and I work with Arianna since 1 year, basically. Like 2 nights ago, Arianna said me one sentence that reminded me that I'm kind of lucky, because she said me that like you have to be lucky if someone bring you inside the natural wine. As you said, at the university usually is more conventional making of wine. So they basically suggest you to use chemical things, adding yeast to have like a perfect wine, like clean wine. And I mean, natural wine is opposite about this philosophy. So it's amazing that today we are inside this world. As you said correctly, Rihanna started probably thanks to one approach that she was close to Giusto, but when she started in 2004, she was able to start by renting 1 hectare, about Nero Double and Frappato, that are the 2 varieties that we are still using. And also the SP68 is made by Frappato Nero D'Avola. The SP68 red is 70% of Frappato and 30 about Nero D'Avola. I mean, is a interesting story, because Arianna, as I said, started by renting 1 hectare, and then year by year she was able to become bigger and bigger, thanks to renting and buying some vines. And of course, she started to have a organic, a biodynamic way to produce. So probably was the main focus of Arianna, just respecting the territory, respecting the soil, respecting every step of production. And you know, in the natural wine, it is more difficult to be like perfect. But in a conventional wine, if you have some mistakes, some trouble, you can adjust by chemical things. In the natural wine, if you have something that is a bit complicated, you have to have your knowledge, your experience to manage that situation. And I mean, of course, maybe in the first year, every producer is a bit more like, it's not really clean, probably. And after, thanks to the experience, I mean, you are able to make a perfect wine, I mean, clean wine, and in a really good way.
Great. I think we're going to dig into like the farming methods and also the sort of winemaking methods, what makes those wines so distinctive, so singular. But I just want to go back like almost to square one and just tell us a bit about your region. You know, where are you? Can you describe the sort of scenery, the environment, how close are you to hills and mountains, to the sea? And then maybe just a little bit about the wine culture, the history of Vittoria.
I'm just going to very quickly share my screen as well. I've got some maps. Okay.
So we're going to look at a map. You'll see the domain. So how close are you to the sea at Arianna's base?
Okay, about our area of production, we are like between Vittoria, Comiso, in the Ragusa area, to let you understand. We have in front of our winery the Iblay Mount, and usually when we have like clean day, you can see also the Etna. Is amazing. So in our area, probably is one of the best area in Sicily, or one of more known about Sicily, because it's the only DOCG that we have in our region. The DOCG is about the Cerasuolo di Vittoria, that is a blend about Frappato and Nero d'Avola. For the law, the Cerasuolo di Vittoria is made by a maximum 70% of Nero d'Avola, blended with a maximum 50% of Frappato. So you can do like a blend about 70 and 30, 60 and 40, or 50 and 50. And 50-50, for example, is our blend. Our Cerasuolo di Vittoria is a blend about 50 Nero d'Avola and 50 Frappato. Our area of production is really interesting because here we have a mix about limestone and red sand. Limestone is really important in our area because increase acidity, increase the tannins on the wine, increase the minerality on the wine, and have our wine to be more austere. And I mean, it's amazing. And thanks to the limestone also, we can avoid to irrigate. So we don't use irrigation system. Basically, thanks to the limestone that is like a sponge, limestone absorbs water and is our sink of water during the year. Then we have the red sand. The red sand is like a sand that is from the sea. And thanks to the balance that we have from limestone and red sand, we can balance the wine in a different way. For example, more limestone in our soil means that you will have more acidity, more tannins on the wine. More red sand means that you will have like more light wine. So, for example, in our SP68, this balance is really impressive and is really important because inside the SP68 red there are 4 different parcels, 2 about Nero d'Avola and 2 about Frappato, to have the best balance in the wine. I mean, Nero d'Avola, SP68 is a wine that is really drinkable. I can say easy to drink. Usually Nero d'Avola need just limestone because the acidity on the Nero d'Avola is something that we need. There are a lot of areas in Sicily where the Nero d'Avola have too much clay, and clay means for the Nero d'Avola being like too much jammy and too much concentrate, too much alcohol. And so our Nero d'Avola usually is about 12 and a half. Then the Frappato is in a limestone red sand. So I mean, the red aroma fruits on Frappato are like really important. And in our SP68, we do a semi-carbonic fermentation. So in the tank that we use concrete tank that are about 94 hectoliters. We used to use like 10% of full bunch. Full bunch means semi-carbonic maceration that increase the red aroma fruits. The wine is more fruity, more juicy. Is the first thing that customers say when they taste our SP68 is that seems like a juice, a fermented juice, and basically it's like that. Then our area is characterized by a lot of limestone. Limestone here is the key to have the best balance and the good acidity on the wine.
Thanks. Tell us a bit about farming methods. How do your vineyards actually look? And I know that you're organic. Do you use also any biodynamic preparations? Do you do things like cover crops or allow plants, flowers, etc., to grow between the vines? If so, how does this help these vines and the
transmit terroir. Yeah, in this period, we are preparing our soil for the cover crops, for the green manure. Basically, we use a mix about 14 different seeds that are leguminous plant, like beans, peas, mustard, lentils, wheat also. Basically, these plants are able to fix the nitrogen on the soil, and you know, nitrogen is one of the best macro element, sorry, for the soil, and increase like biochemical reaction to produce amino acid, protein that are really good for the plant. So here we are preparing the soil. Now we are preparing the soil, and in about 1 month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending also to the season, we are going to plant these seeds for the cover crop. We also use biodynamic preparate, especially the 500. So in determinate area where we need to increase the organic matter, we use 500, and we use also our compost. Our compost is made by pressed skin, roots, leaf, seeds. Everything could be compostable. Also, our vegetable in the composition could be good for the compost. And then basically what we try to do is stimulate the soil to start the humification. So to start like to produce humus. That is the key to have the best fertilized natural organic soil.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to the winery. I think you described certain of the things that you use, but in terms of winemaking methods, and I'm sure it changes according to the cuvee. So you said you use a little bit of whole bunch in some of the wines. Are the grapes mainly destemmed? And how much whole bunch do you use? How long are the macerations that you have? Do you do things like punch down or pump over? I suspect not, because the wines don't taste very extractive. And the maturation vessels, I know you've got like these big cement vats. Do you use anything else? You do have some oak Slavonian barrels, I believe, and then finally, at the end, what's your regime on filtration, fining, and addition of sulfur? So just take us through the winemaking, from the point when the grapes get to the winery to the point where they finally are bottled.
Okay, so the making of the SP red, as you said, is with full bunch. It usually is about 10%. Of course, we don't have like a recipe, so we follow the season, depending how much concentrate are the berry, the grapes. We try to manage in a different way. So we follow just what we feel. No, not just like everything had to be the same every year. So our SP, for example, is made in concrete tank that are about 94 hectoliters, and basically everything is destemmed, just 85–90%. And we do 15 days maceration, usually is like an average days. And during the fermentation, in SP, we do like 1–2 pumping over during the day. One in the morning and one in the afternoon. Usually are about 5, 6, 7 minutes, depending in which moment of the fermentation we are. And then the SP is just made in concrete. So we do the maceration, then after the fermentation, when the fermentation is over, we go in a press. So we take the juice from the tank, and we separate juice and skin, and the skin goes on the press with a light press. We have the juice that we blend with the the first juice, and then we stay on concrete, just concrete, for about 7-8 months. Usually at the end of March, beginning of April, we start bottling the SP. As you said, we also have barrel. We just use big barrel, but the barrel are for our Frappato, 100% il Frappato, and for our Nero d'Avola, that is a 100% Nero d'Avola that is called Ziccagno, and also for our Cerasuolo di Vittoria. That is a wine that stay on concrete on barrel for about 3 years. We just use big barrel as a Hock barrel. About 2 main producers that are, one is Austrian and the other one is French. We use big barrel, about 30 hectoliters and 50 hectoliters, and we are really focused on the way to clean every time in the perfect way the barrel. So in every part of our day, cleaning in the best way means a stable wine. That is really important for us. This is why we can use just a little bit of sulfur just before bottling. Because usually we don't use sulfur because we want to stimulate the fermentation that of course are natural without yeast, and also we have to stimulate the malolactic fermentation, so this is why we don't use sulfur at the beginning, just before bottling, because it is a bit more stable, the wine. I mean, but we are talking about like small quantity.
I'm gonna very selfishly ask a question. So I've actually worked in a natural winery myself before, and I remember that cleaning was very much, you know, people talk about winemaking, and winemaking is about 95% cleaning, especially if you want to make natural wine. But I had a really interesting conversation with a Californian natural winemaker once, who said that actually having too clean a winery is actually a bad thing. It's a little bit like with children, how you should let them be exposed to germs because they build up an immunity. So I'm just quite curious what you think about that, whether or not sort of pure, like you can be almost too clean and then encourage other nasty bacteria to get into the winery because there's no defense system in there. Would you say that's accurate? I've always wanted to ask someone this question. So.
I mean, when we clean a tank, we don't use chemical things. We just use water with high pressure water, and water is about 100 degrees. So what we want to do is just cleaning like the tartrat or some wine that is still on the tank, that could be then a vinegar, or with the bacteria, could be acetic bacteria, that of course could be a problem. But I mean, we don't sterilize our tank. We don't like to sterilize, also because you know, some good yeast could be good for the next season. So if you could have some trouble that some fermentation is not starting, but it's not possible. If you just work in a good way outside, so on the vineyards, everything could be everything will be perfect on the cellar. So I mean, cleaning is just something that we use to have a stable wine, but not like sterilized wine. So, you know, we are natural wine. We produce natural wine, so we don't use like soda or this thing that could also have a residual on the wine.
I was reading that you have a traditional Sicilian palmento. Do you still have that, and do you use it if you do?
Yeah, we have a palmento in our tasting room that is between the tasting room and Arianna's house, because Arianna lives here.
Could you expand on what that is for people as well?
Sorry?
Could you expand on what that is as well?
Yeah, of course.
What a palmento is.
Yeah, of course. There are old houses in Sicily that are called baglio, that are like old house where people used to make wine, and palmento are like whole tank just under the soil, just our tank under the soil, where people use to crush the grapes from the top, and just thanks to some tunnel, and so thanks to the gravity, the juice goes on inside the tank, and they used to ferment it inside this tank. It was like really most natural things we are not using today. These are just old tank that are just beautiful to see, and this is why also during the tasting we let see to the people that come here to visit us and taste some wine, but we are not using anymore.
Great, thank you. I want to talk about the grape varieties, particularly Frappato, which I believe Arianna has a particular love of this grape. And also, if you could describe a bit what is so special about this and why it is unique to this part of Sicily. And the second thing is, can you elaborate a bit on the project called Contrada, the different types of Frappato and different types of soil, and what makes those wines particularly unique and beautiful, I might say, as well.
Okay, so probably everybody of this area had to say thanks to Arianna, because Arianna, probably thanks that she was 21, so was full of energy, full of power, decided to vinify the Frappato 100%. I'm saying this because in this area, Frappato was used just to blend the Nero d'Avola, because people was thinking about like Frappato is too much light, doesn't have a structure body, so every time needs something to add Frappato to increase the body. Arianna, since the beginning, trusted the Frappato, and basically thanks to a long maceration that is about 24-25 days. And then going in the barrel, of course, big barrel, for about 40 months. The wine still had that way about be drinkable, really easy wine. But thanks to the maceration, thanks to the barrel, that wine become more, I don't want to say heavy, but more with more body, with more structure. You can smell that have something that want to say to you. And actually, 5 years ago, Arianna started with the Contrade. Contrade is a project about trying to let a customer understand what mean working with the same varieties as Frappato, with the same vinification, but just 3 different Contrade. So Contrade is just like different parcel. So she started to work with our main Contrade, that is BB, where is our cellar, where is our winery, that is Bombolieri, called Bombolieri, where we have mostly limestone. Then for FL, Fossa di Lupo, where Arianna started in 2004, and is like a mix about red sand and limestone, but always a bit more limestone. And then PT. PT is our oldest vineyards. The vines are about 62 years old. And there we have like red sand that is from the sea. So there we have more salinity, more minerality. about just the sea sand. It's really interesting, and if you taste from the tank every day this contrade, it's amazing that every time change a bit in a different way, and are completely 3 different wine.
There's some of my favorite reds that I've tasted over the last few years. I think the wines have, they're really complex, but they're really tightly wound, and yet have great transparency as well. For me, it's almost like Frappato is almost like Pinot Noir in terms of its ability to express the terroir. It just brings me on to something like, I think the wines of Arianna, I don't associate them with wines from very warm regions because they have so much freshness, energy, and elegance, and the alcohols are relatively low. How do you achieve this? Is this partly to do with the limestone and this unique climate, microclimate that you have? Is it also to do with the way you work in the winery and wanting to have a sort of more natural profile, something which you can drink as well as admire? What do you think is the sort of secret to wines from a warm region, which taste almost from a cool climate,
Okay, so it's a nice question. I mean, probably it's just thanks to the work that we do every year outside, because I mean, in the cellar you can't manage the alcohol, you can't add sugar or something like that. So everything that is our wine is just made outside. One of the best fact for me, yes, is the limestone, but also is that we don't use to irrigate. Don't use to irrigate means that in your wine, so in your grapes, you will have the perfect pH on the berry, on the juice. Because if you just put water on your soil, the juice will go like through the natural pH. So will go more than like 3.4, 3.5. This is just a technique meaning like chemical, just chemistry. By the way, I just want to say that the best pH for the wine is about 2.9 to 3.3, 3.4. And thanks to the fact that we try to avoid the waste water also, so we don't, thanks to avoid the irrigation, we have the best pH on the wine. That means also the best acid on the wine. And about alcohol is just just the soil, and also like this summer we had like in June, at the end of June, like for 2 weeks, 45 degrees every day. That means that the vines stopped the maturation. So stopping maturation means that they are not able to maturate, transforming every sugar that they have, that they can produce. So also thanks probably to this warm temperature, we can have less alcohol than other area.
I mean, because the wine shut down basically for a period of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now, I think the other thing when I drink the wines is I think they're very gastronomic, and they really get your sort of juices flowing. What do you eat with them locally? I mean, obviously, different wines you might eat different dishes, but what's a local dish? What's an amazing pairing that you have in Sicily? But also, what is maybe some surprising pairings when you've traveled to other countries and do wine fairs or present the wines and people say, oh, I paired this with this wine and it works brilliantly. Have you found anything that really sort of blows you away in terms of food and wine pairing?
Okay, I mean, talking about food in Sicily is like talking about life for the people. It's interesting because in Sicily we have different typical things. For example, I'm from Palermo, and in Palermo area we have something that you can find here, and also in this area, so in Ragusa area, you have something that I can find in Palermo. I mean, is that like a poor kind of eating in Sicily? We try to transform everything in the best way, but mostly are like vegetables. So like eggplant. There are typical dish like in Palermo that are panelle e croquette, that are like fried stuff. Everything in Sicily usually is fried, like the arancine, for example. But I mean, it's really interesting, frappato, because Sicily is also one of the best regions to eat fish. And just to break the barrier about red wine, steak, meat, I want to say that frappato is really interesting with also fish. Frappato is able to clean your mouth about fat things, and also some fat fish like could be also a tuna or a salmon. With frappato is really, really amazing. Then I mean, there are a lot of cook that are trying to understand what are the best, what they can associate with the frappato or with our wine. So it's like something that every day we can know more than other days. I mean, it's an evolution.
I just wanted to say thanks so much for bringing up the sort of red wine and fish taboo, because I worked as a sommelier for quite a long time before joining the sourcing table, and spent half my life trying to convince guests that they should be drinking really sort of lighter reds, specifically frappato from Occhipinti and frappato from Kos, with seafood and fish dishes. And I could not agree more. I think it's an incredibly versatile wine style to have with seafood. Not so much now because it's going into autumn, but it's also really nice to chill it down and enjoy it during the summer. But equally, I think that these wines go very well with a lot of autumn dishes too. So they're just incredibly versatile. It's really wonderful.
Actually, we might as well say something about the white wines, because people, you know, obviously we associate Arianna particularly with making reds and from frappato and Nardavola, but there is an SB68 white. And I heard, or did I read, that you planted Grillo or something? Are you going to make a wine from that grape variety?
Yes, we have this new things, new label, new wine. So on 2010, Arianna started a production about the SP68 white. That is a blend about 60% of Moscato and 40 about Albanello. So indigenous variety of our area. And 2016. Arianna found a really good area that is in Chiaramonte Gulfi, is about 20 minutes from our winery. Is in the Blay Mount, is about 500 meters on the level of the sea, where we have basically just limestone, like limestone sand is like white sand, and Arianna was trying to choose the best variety, was like choosing about Grillo or Caricante, but after some discussion, she decided to plant Grillo, and we are going out like now with the new bottle, we are labeling in these days, like yesterday and this morning we labeled something. Is amazing. Is a Grillo macerated for 2 days, and is a wine that also goes through the barrel for about 7-8 months. So it's like a 50% on barrel and 50% on concrete. And then after the aging, we used to blend the concrete tank and the barrel. And then after about 7 months aging on concrete, we start bottling. So basically after a year, that wine is ready. We also do batonnage on Grillo. That is interesting on Grillo with working in this way to have more body. And I mean, we are really curious about how this wine will age in the bottle. The evolution of the bottle, of course, will be so interesting. And I mean, we are waiting some years to understand something, but we are really excited with this new label. And I can say as Ermanno, and not like Ermanno that is working from Arianna, that I really like that wine, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
I associate Grillo with really high acidity, you know, from the wines of Marsala in particularly, and give incredible aging potential. But if you have a wine of high acidity on limestone, I can imagine that you would need to do batonnage and a bit of barrel aging just to soften some of the edges. Is that right? Is that how you approached the wine?
Yeah. We think that will be a wine that can age for a long time. And you're right when you say that about limestone, because increasing acidity means that wine can stay on the bottle for a long time. So yes, definitely yes.
Well, I really look forward to trying it. I just need to tell our Italian buyer, to get his act together. I'm going to sort of end. I just want to talk generally and more philosophically, perhaps, about the natural wine phenomenon, because when one talks about natural wine and Sicily in particular, which seems to be a real hotbed of natural wine, but with Etna and what Arianna and Giusto and the guys around you are doing, it's obviously a very exciting movement. And what do you think it makes why is it so attractive, do you think, to at least a whole new generation of drinkers? What do you think they find appealing about natural wines? It's not just the label; it's more to do with the philosophy, the drinkability of the wines, perhaps, provenance, the story behind them. Organic farming. What is natural wine?
I mean, like with the new generation, I can say that I'm part of the new generation. The attraction for me is just respecting our territory. And when I say respecting our territory, means also like working with the indigenous variety. I respected since the first day Arianna, because Arianna just worked with Nero d'Avola and Frappato, Moscato d'Alessandria or Zibibo, Albanello, that are just indigenous variety, and there are not compromise about the production. Of course, that probably the middle customer, if I have to choose a bottle of Frappato Nero d'Avola or a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, will choose Cabernet Sauvignon just because you know about that varieties. But for me, the attractive things is just this one, trying to let people understand what are you doing and what are your variety that you are working with. And it's really interesting. Also, working in a natural winery, so working in a natural vineyards, you just can touch the soil and you can smell and you understand that there is something that you can find in every place. And also when I talk, for example, with my friend, and I have to explain what is a natural wine, usually they just start to drink a wine and they start to say, I smell the strawberry, I smell the cherry. And always I stop this guy and I ask you, but do you smell power, energy about in that wine? Are you able to feel like the work inside that bottle? So for me, natural wine is just trying to understand what is inside that bottle, the work that is inside that bottle, the winemaker, to try to understand the mentality of the winemaker, what he or she did to make that wine.
I think you said something very profound there, because you have to find often a new language. You know, like you live in the area, you're in the vineyards, you taste the wine all the time. It's like part of you. It's like second nature. But for someone who's never been there, they have to find the language. And as you say, it's not strawberries and cherries, because that's like a cliche. It could be anything, you know. But wine is wine. It's a transformed product, but it's channeling this unique nature of the terroir. It's channeling the vintage. It's channeling the interventions, even the natural interventions of the vigneron. And that's what makes it such an exciting thing. And I think the natural wine, it has greater transparency, because there are no clumsy, hopefully no clumsy interventions, no obvious oak, no sweetness, no over alcohol, too much extraction, too many additives. You don't taste that. What you do is you taste something which is pure, something which is gastronomic, something which can be quite reserved, but has personality, like which you have to get to know in time. You can't just know it immediately.
Yeah, you're right, because I'm not saying that you can't say like, I smell the cherry or I smell the strawberry, because when you go like a bit deeper on the wine, of course, that if you have also the capacity to talk about that a wine, you have to, of course. But I mean, before talking and thinking about something that is like a flavor on that wine, is just something that for me is important to understand. If I smell energy, for me it's just everything about energy. I want to show you also our new bottle about the grill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are you able to see? There is too much light.
SM.
Is it SM? Yes, because SM is also this one, a Vino di Contrada. And SM is a Contrada that we have in Chiara Montecolfi. It's a Santa Margherita.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the new baby.
World exclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
I look forward to meeting the baby. Any other questions, Ellen?
I was going to say, I've got this has been absolutely wonderful. I'm sorry about the slight technical issues to start things off, but I would love if anyone that's on the chat already would love to ask some questions. Chris has just asked a great one, so I'm going to read that out for you guys. So I'll unmute you very shortly, Ermanno. Chris says, I'm fascinated by the fact that it is so often said that natural winemaking practices have to be overwritten from winemaking studies. Why do you think teaching doesn't move with the times? Also, is there a focus on viticultural practices that look more to longevity of vines and vineyards as opposed to maximizing yields? What do you think, Ermanno?
I'm university, for example, that I did wine culture and enology studies. Just give to you an approach to that word that is amazing. I don't want to talk about something that is bad for the university. But what I'm able to say is just that is a classic approach. Nobody talk about natural wine. Nobody talk about that a wine, you can ferment a wine with a natural yeast. Is always about adding stuff to the wine to clean, to increase the acidity, to decrease the acidity, filtering and using sulfur, and also on the vineyards you can use systemic products to fight against disease, against powder, using like a lot of doing a lot of treatments to have the perfect grapes. That for me is not the perfect grapes. So when I talk also with my colleagues that are studied wine culture and enology in other university, I try to understand if it's a standard things or it's just depending about the teacher. But probably something is changing in these years. When I studied, that was like 8 years ago, probably natural wine was like something that wasn't too much considered. Now, when I talk with my new colleague, they start to talk about natural wine because they hear about the teacher about natural wine, natural wine making, and also natural, so organic managing of on the vineyards.
I think the generation now is people like Anna Martins, who was teaching diploma and master of wine for the WSET in London. So we're actually having and on the WSET diploma course, they actually now have a natural wine component. But for many years, they didn't acknowledge that, you know, these wines existed, you know, even though they existed for 8,000 years. They finally, a generation of people who are making wines, who are acknowledged as making beautiful wines, you know, not faulty wines. Everyone has to take notice of that. And it's what the young generation, by which I mean sort of 20 to 45, it's what people are drinking. It's you look at the growth of natural wine bars and in all the major cities in the world, and you know, and the culture has spreading, and it seems to be very democratic as well. It's not about snobbery. It's about what's in the glass and where it came from, and you know, talking about the terroir, talking about the grower, talking about the history, talking about sustainability. These are the subjects that interest at least the youth culture, or the younger drinking culture of today.
I also want to just elaborate on something that Doug just said, because he mentioned Anna. So Anna is, she makes Vino d'Anna, which is another really fabulous Sicilian wine. And she actually taught me my diploma. So when I did my viticulture and vinification, Anna was my teacher. And I was incredibly lucky because she taught me a lot of really interesting things that weren't necessarily on the curriculum, but I still completely passed my exam. You know, it's not like she gave me this information that wasn't useful. It was really useful, but it sort of made me realize that just because it says something in a textbook doesn't mean that's actually the only way to do it. It's not one way to skin a cat, as they say. It's a great question, Chris, as well, because, you know, I think that it's not just in winemaking studies in universities, but in WCT courses, the Guild of Master Sommelier courses. It's all, for so long, it's been so narrow-minded. And actually, like Doug says, these are practices that have lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years, and is very much what people want to drink now, and what the next generation and the current generation want to drink now as well. So it's really exciting to hear that you think that things are starting to change a little bit as well. And also just shout out to Anna, because she's great.
Yes. And the second part of the question I think was interesting as well, because vineyards are part of nature. They're not just machines for giving grapes. And the conservation of old vines, particularly, and indigenous grape varieties, for me, what you do at your winery is fantastic, because we wouldn't know of these grape varieties other than that. We would still be locked into the sort of the international grape brands, but now we understand that, you know, it's not a grape that is better than another grape. It is a grape that belongs historically to a region for it, and there's a specific reason why it flourishes in that particular region.
I mean, Sicily today is a region that is going to grow in a really good way. And you mentioned Hannah. There are a lot of producers that are working in the best way they can, and in different area of production. So you can find someone in Marsala area, you can find someone also in our area, in Palermo area, in Faro, so Messina. That, and of course, there are a lot of producers that I love. And someone can talk about natural wine as trend, but for me, the trend is like conventional wine. Natural wine is just the normal things. I hope that some days will change something about natural wines are the normal things, and conventional wine are just the wine that are not normal, just modificate, like changed. A lot of people are scared about OGM things, like OGM fruits, and maybe also some wine could be OGM.
Don't terrify us.
Yeah. Does anyone have, because it's sort of coming up to just after being on nearly an hour now, does anyone else have any other questions that they'd like to ask Ermanno, who's has answered so many of them so wonderfully? And Doug, I cannot thank you enough for your amazing insights. I was very excited to have you on this call for that exact reason.
Thank you.
Amazing. So I think, because I've seen a couple of people have dropped off, which is absolutely fine because it's about 8 o'clock here now. And I just want to say thank you so much, everyone that's joined us, and everyone that's going to be watching this when I put it up on YouTube in the next couple of days. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with us and the winemakers. Ermanno, you were fabulous. Thank you so much for bearing with me with some of the technical issues. Like Doug said earlier, we've been in lockdowns for two years and I still can't figure out Zoom very well, but we got there in the end. But thank you so much, and can you please extend our love and thanks to Arianna as well, because we obviously everything you're doing is sort of what she's doing too, but it was really wonderful to hear your perspective on it. And Doug, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well,
you've been
thanks for
wonderful.
having me. Yeah, thanks for having me so much, and thanks, Ermanno. That was brilliant. Really eloquent, and lots of passion. We love to hear that.
And I'm sorry I had to keep muting you because of the echo. I'm going to mute now again so you can say hello to everyone.
Okay, thank you very much to let me participate here, and we are waiting for everybody to like just tasting something together here in our winery. So when you want to come, just our doors are open for you, and I will appreciate to meet you and just talking about something new together. So it was really a pleasure to stay here and to meet you, and I hope that one day we can meet.
We do too.
We do too. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my favorite thing is that every time we do one of these, the wonderful winemakers always say that. So at the moment, I'm organizing like a team sourcing table trip with all of our customers to Sicily, to South Africa, to Jerez. It's going to be amazing when we can finally make that happen. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, thank you for bearing with the technical difficulties. And we're doing another one of these in a few weeks' time with Pax Mal in California. We've kind of had to book everything to end everything together this sort of quarter because, well, everyone's in the middle of harvest. So thank you so much. I'm going to end this now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Madeline. Bye. Bye-bye.